Good morning. I'm Rob Campbell, Senior Manager, Conservation Strategies at WHC. We will begin our session shortly. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you, be sure to check out our exhibit hall where you can engage with our exhibitors live. There's also the community area where you can find attendees and send messages. So between sessions, please be sure to browse around and engage where you can. I want to thank our sponsors once again. Our platinum sponsor is ExxonMobil. Gold sponsors include Exelon, Ontario Power Generation, and Toyota. Our silver sponsors are Bacardi, BASF, Chemours, Chevron, DTE Energy, Freeport-McMoRan, and Coke. Our general sponsors are Ernst Seeds, Lehigh Hansen, and Vulcan Materials. Thank you to all of our WHC Connect sponsors. Now we'll begin our session. It's my pleasure to introduce once again, Margaret O'Gorman.
Thank you, Rob. And before we get our panel started, I have a short poll that I would like to you to respond to. So we're going to run the poll, and the poll is basically trying to find out how many of you it's your first time attending a WHC conference, for how many of you have been before at the conference that was usually held in Baltimore. So if you want to submit an answer to that, we are collecting answers. Gosh, it looks like 50-50-ish at the moment. Okay. A few minutes more, a few seconds more. We have 71% voted so far. Okay. 89%. This is a great turnout. Can we get to 100%? Well, let's close the poll here at 92%. And we can see for 45% of the audience, this is your first time attending a WHC conference. So to 45% of the audience, welcome. And I am so pleased to see you here. 55% of the audience has attended a conference before, and to that 55%, you're also most welcome. And while it's not Baltimore, we're also very pleased to see you here. So it's great to see new names and names that we have known for a long time. So thank you for that. So as we get into this panel, what we're going to talk about today is basically how the past, present, and future of biodiversity in terms of corporate engagement, in terms of strategic approaches to nature. 2020 was supposed to be the super year for nature. We started the year very excited. Global gatherings such as the IUCN World Congress and the Convention on Biological Diversity's big convention of the parties, these were meant to establish platforms and calls to action and commitments from governments, from NGOs, from the private sector and scientists to really restore and protect our planet's resources. So while the pandemic wreaks havoc on those plans, there now exist opportunities for businesses to recommit to nature, to build forward for nature. And this session, we're going to explore how corporations have engaged with biodiversity, what their plans are for the future. And we're going to also introduce global initiatives that are helping move nature onto the radar of business during this International Year for Nature. So we're going to talk about very briefly the Business for Nature initiative, of which WHC is a partner. And then at the end of the panel, I am going to be presenting the final award sorry, not the final award I'm going to be presented, which is the coveted Corporate Leadership Award. We have the Engagement Award and the Program of the Year Award coming up later, but I'm going to be presenting what is normally the final one at our conference, but in this one we're going to be presenting the Corporate Leadership Award at the end, so stick around for that. So to kick us off, I will introduce both of our panelists today who represent companies from different industry sectors, but who have embraced biodiversity in strategic and evolving ways. As with our other presentations, we will take questions through the Q&A function and encourage you to do so. So I'm going to introduce both panelists and then we will start with their presentations. So Geraldine Barnuevo is the Environmental Strategies and Sustainability Senior Manager for General Motors North America. She's based in Warren, Michigan. In this role, Geraldine manages the company's environmental compliance program, as well as GM's sustainability initiatives in the areas of waste management, sustainable materials, sustainable supply chain, plus other domains to reduce environmental and social impact and improve organizational performance. Geraldine is working in the implementation of the Beyond 2020 sustainability goals for General Motors, with focus on realizing the vision of zero emissions, zero congestion, and zero crashes. Geraldine has over 20 years of experience in the automotive industry, working in several geographic regions in roles from environmental operations, remediation to environmental strategic programs and sustainability. And our second speaker today is Vicente Seizo. He's currently Corporate Director of Sustainability at CEMEX. He's responsible for defining CEMEX's global sustainability strategy and coordinating the implementation of initiatives in all CEMEX business units across the world. Within the scope of his work, he supervises CEMEX's response to the climate change challenge and the actions required to fulfill the company's target to significantly reduce CO2 emissions by 2030 and its ambition to deliver globally net zero CO2 concrete by 2050. He represents CEMEX at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and the Global Concrete and Cement Association. He holds a bachelor's degree in accounting from the Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de Mexico and has an MBA at the Kellogg Graduate School of Management in Northwestern University. So as I said, we'll take questions through the Q&A function throughout, but let's go to Geraldine first. Geraldine, thank you for joining us. She's going to share some slides and talk about GM's evolution with biodiversity and their relationship with WHC. Thank you, Geraldine.
Thank you, Margaret. Do you hear me well first?
Yes.
Perfect, you know. So GM has proudly been a member of a partner of WHC for almost 10 years now. And given the role that biodiversity plays in the global environment, we are committing as part of our Beyond 2020 goals in procuring up to 50% or more of our materials from sustainable sources, which include bio-based materials, materials from responsibly sourced locations around the world. And that is our way to show to our customers and partners that we value nature. So Melissa, can you help me with the first slide, please? Thank you. Maybe the second one. So GM, as of today, has up to 72 sites with certified wildlife habitat programs globally. You can see in this map the locations across the Americas and in Asia. 55 of those 72 sites are with WHC. We are also working in a new program, Biodiversity by Design, for our new sites here in the US, where we are going to be manufacturing our EV batteries, the future EV batteries for GM, and our factory zero here in Detroit. So we are partnering again with WHC to approach the incorporation of design features of nature in our new sites and the sites that we're retrofitting to make them more friendly to the wildlife and biodiversity of that area. So you can go to the next one, Melissa. Thank you. In our Lordstown plant in Ohio, where we're going to be manufacturing our new generation of Ultium batteries, we are investing in 130 acres of wetlands reestablished in a wildlife area with significant investment. And we're proudly, very working with the state and others and very advanced in our work here. In addition to that, as I mentioned, you go to the next slide. In our Detroit Hamtramck plant, we're working with WHC on a biodiversity patch in the middle of the city to bring that as an opportunity for our customers, our employees, and the public to have something in the middle of the city. So what else GM does in the area of biodiversity? GM has been a sponsor of the WHC Conservation Academy webinar since its inception. We sponsor 30 eco-school programs that have a biodiversity component as part of the curriculum through high school and students, and we are supporting our STEM efforts in that area. We also work with partnerships with watershed coalitions like the Flint River Watershed Coalition, and we are very proud of the work that we are doing to show our commitment and how GM values nature. So it has been a 10-year journey. We're moving forward with even stronger commitments to continue valuing nature as part of our strategic business. And with that, I will leave you with Vicente. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. And we are now going to hear from Vicente. So Vicente, take it away.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here. And I will also be sharing a couple of slides to explain to you how we address biodiversity in CEMEX and how the World Habitat Council has played an important role in enhancing and reinforcing our strategy for biodiversity. If we can go to the next slide, please. It's a busy slide, but I think it has all the relevant highlights of a very comprehensive biodiversity strategy that we have put together since 20 years ago. We have been very active in biodiversity because at the first stage of our production process, we extract minerals from active quarries, and those are the basic raw materials for our cement and aggregates production process. So we have around 267 quarries open, active, and working throughout the world. And we have developed a very comprehensive strategy to address biodiversity conservation in those quarries because it's a very important element for us to have the license to operate and for us to be sure that in the long term we are going to be open and in business and be able to continue with our activities and with no disruption. No? We have made some big efforts with organizations like the IUCN to map all of our quarries and identify those quarries that are located in areas considered by world organizations as with high biodiversity value. For those quarries located in those areas, we have developed biodiversity action plans. Pearl Lake International helped us to develop that methodology, and some of its local partners are helping us to implement that. As of today, 93% of our quarries worldwide have a biodiversity action plan in place, and we plan to reach 100 in the very near future. 97% of our quarries have rehabilitation plans, which have biodiversity incorporated and considered in there. We recently made an acquisition a few years ago in Central America, and that's the gap that we have for 100%, but now we're working on that one to catch up. And the relevant part of this effort is that we are always looking on how to enhance it. No? So a few years ago, our operation in the US had a good relationship with the Wildlife Habitat Council. We thought that it was going to be a very relevant initiative if we take it worldwide and we take it to other CEMEX geographies. And I'm very glad and honored to say that since 2016 up to now, we have 30 programs with the Wildlife Habitat certification in 7 different countries. So it's the US, Mexico, countries in Central and South America like Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and very recently Poland and Latvia. So we are extending it to Europe. We like the wildlife habitat approach, that it can become a global initiative, and that's very important for us as a global company to be able to extend the best practices and to push biodiversity conservation in all of our operations. No? We have been, let's say, lucky to be awarded by the Wildlife Habitat for different programs that we have presented over the years. And those recognitions always serve as a motivation for our teams in the operations to move further. And on the next slide, I want to show you one of the examples, or one of the many examples that we have throughout the CEMEX footprint and how we approach biodiversity. You know? 20 years ago, we created a nature reserve in the north of Mexico that also has one part of its operation in the US side, around it's near the border of Mexico and Texas. The size of this nature reserve is equivalent to Houston or to Mexico City, 140,000 hectares. It's a huge place, fully dedicated to conservation of biodiversity. We don't have operations there. We acquired this property to invest money in conservation of biodiversity, to reintroduce all the animal species that were gone from that area because of different reasons, also to restore grasslands and also to restore forests in the upper part of where there's a forest area. This nature reserve is 8 times bigger than all the different land that is impacted by our operations in our quarries. So it's a big ecological compensation that we have put forward so that our activities are net positive from the biodiversity point of view. We have been recognized by the Wildlife Habitat for this with the Gold Tier program back in 2016, and we are very proud of that. And it's also very relevant carbon sink. You know, natural carbon sinks are very big and important part of the equation for reaching the Paris Agreement goals of keeping global temperatures below 1.5 degrees. And we are doing our part by conserving and enhancing this important carbon capture sink. You know? We are going to have good surprises next year with some of the programs that we are developing in El Carmen. And we hope that this is an illustration on how companies can go deeper and can go beyond what is required to have a license to operate and find ways on how to implement more ambitious programs as you go deeper into understanding biodiversity and how we can partner with organizations like the Wildlife Habitat that help us to enhance this effort. Thank you.
You are muted, Margaret.
Thank you. Okay,
That always happens.
I have to pay a fine to our conference organizers for that blooper. But Vicente, thank you so much for that. I always love the story of El Carmen. Someday I am going to get down there. I know
you
they
are
have
invited, and all are invited to visit sometime.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And Geraldine, thank you also for yours. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides about the Business for Nature initiative, because I have a captured audience here. And I just want to introduce this global initiative. As I said, 2020 was supposed to be the super year for nature. It still is, but in different ways. And the Wildlife Habitat Council joined the Business for Nature Global Coalition last year. And the Business for Nature Global Coalition is bringing together influential organizations and forward-thinking businesses. And it's really trying to change the conversation around business engagement with nature. It's a community that is composed of a diverse and powerful group of organizations and networks who are working with business to reverse the loss of nature. So businesses like WHC that work on the pragmatic end of things, and maybe businesses like NGOs like the Natural Capital Coalition that work on the natural capital valuation frameworks. It also includes forward-thinking businesses that have relevant commitments and that are acting to reduce their environmental impacts. So the nature, the initiative is the objective of it is to convene a united business voice to influence key political decisions in 2020 and beyond. It's also to demonstrate business ambition and action to protect and enhance nature. And it wants to showcase, of course, solutions, I think, which is where WHC is ahead of many groups, as we've so many solutions and so many approaches on the ground, as well as communicating the business case for reversing nature loss. So the initiative has, and this is my, I'm using my captured audience here. They've put out this call to action, and the call to action is very simple. It says that the company agrees that healthy societies, resilient economies, and thriving businesses rely on nature, and that governments must adopt policies now to reverse nature loss in this decade, and that together we can protect, restore, and sustainably use our natural resources. Now, this call to action has been, it was presented earlier this year, and I am really happy to say that a number of WHC members, including CEMEX, but also Arcadis, BASF, Bayer, BP, Bridgestone, DuPont, and Waste Management have all joined this call to action. So what I would like to see is for the people at this meeting, all of the participants who work in companies of any size, to take this call for action and return to their workplaces. Right now, this is an outdated slide. There are more than 600 businesses with a combined revenue of $4 trillion across the world in all sectors. This is not the traditional sectors that we see signing up for nature. Yes, we have those companies, but it is other companies in the built environment, in chemicals across the spectrum. So what I would like to challenge you is to think about how you could get your leadership engaged in signing on the call for action for the Business for Nature initiative. Not only will you enhance this call for action's power, but you'll also make WHC look really good if it's coming from a WHC member. So I think those two reasons are really powerful ones to move forward. So what I want to do now, I'm going to ask a few questions of our panelists, but I would like to, first of all, because CEMEX is signed on, I would like to ask Vicente, why did CEMEX sign on? What was the process? How difficult it was? Why did you sign the call to nature?
Well, we are participant of different global associations, and we have received invitations to join this call for action from different organizations. No? So this is a big thing, And I agree with you that 2020 is the year of biodiversity and continues to be. So we had that in the radar, no? And when I put this forward to our top management, it was quite easy from the point of view that we have been engaged in biodiversity conservation for 20 years, no? And we are committed to this, no? So it was quite a simple argument to make that call for actions like this one are helpful to communicate to all different stakeholders group of a company big as ours and global presence, that it shows commitment on your side, no? So it's helpful with external stakeholders, but it's also very helpful with internal stakeholders, no? All of our employees and all the people that are in our operations know about this commitment, and let's say it gives motivation to do it even to take it even further, no? And to make it their own, no? So yeah. For both benefits, the argument was powerful, and we are happy to join in this call for nature, and I'm happy to show publicly a commitment and then back it up with actions, no? As we have shown a little bit earlier in the conversation.
Yeah, sure, and thank you for that. So just if anybody wants to more information on it, contact me, contact Vicente. We'd certainly encourage more companies to sign up, because I think it's going to be a powerful conversation the next 12 months. And so Geraldine, actually, I'm going to ask you a question that has been posed by an audience member. Jeff asks, he frames it as a tough question, and I'm not sure it's a tough question.
Okay.
Why is biodiversity important to your organization, and what are the specific benefits of biodiversity to your organization? And I think it's an interesting question to General Motors, because you have evolved your thinking over the last 10 years, and I love where it's gone in terms of that site specific to actually this biodiversity by design. So, and I'll be asking you the same question, Vicente. So why is biodiversity important to General Motors, and what are the benefits to General Motors of engaging in biodiversity?
Well, first, it has enhanced our brand and reputation. Definitely showing commitment towards supporting biodiversity and value nature is something that enhances brand and reputation. It wins the trust and the loyalty from our growing ranks of customers that believe that the companies need to align their business strategy with their sustainability strategy. Draws and retain top talent. So having these biodiversity areas in our plants, we don't have like a footprint like CEMEX, but we have created small patches of biodiversity in many of our plants. And we have employees that just, love to volunteer and be part of those efforts. So identify themselves with that call, to protect nature. So we believe that help us to draw and retain top talent. And finally, it helps companies, businesses to attract investors and lenders. I think that showing commitment towards value nature, biodiversity, in general, helps to attract those investments that we want to have.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think, Geraldine, you're echoing yesterday's panel with Dominique from Solvay. He spoke about growing consumer awareness, and Bill Cobb spoke about growing interest from investors and lenders. And I think these are really powerful drivers that are happening, pun intended for the automotive industry, powerful drivers that are happening to move the industry forward. And certainly General Motors is showing great leadership on that. So Vicente, for you, why is biodiversity important to CEMEX, and what are the specific benefits to your organization?
Yeah, well, biodiversity for us came as relevant by let's say by the nature of our business. I would say, no, that, as I explained in the first part of my conversation, we we do extraction of minerals, and obviously we have a direct impact on biodiversity. No, that's the first thing that comes to mind, that's an impact that we have, and we have to recognize that that's an impact, and then we have to have ways on how to deal with that impact and how to compensate that impact, and also how to better manage it. No, so for us, biodiversity is a big reinforcer of the license to operate. And we have found over time that it has also become very relevant to what I can call a social license to operate. No? So for some stakeholders, and I like Geraldine's comment on customers and all that, because you know, things are changing in the world, no? And the perception on the relevance of nature conservation gladly are finally taking a big part of the mindset of people. No? So for different stakeholder groups, it's starting to become very relevant. So it reinforces also your brand reputation, your institutional reputation as well. It has been a great way on how to engage with authorities, specifically those that are environmental, and it, you know, because when we go to our site and we have very specific regulations and limits on our operations, it's always very good to show that you are doing other things beyond what your day-to-day operation is doing, to go beyond what is expected from your company. No? So this has also been a great way on how to engage with environmental authorities. They are always surprised and amazed on the things that we're doing on biodiversity, and that helps a lot to change the perception. No? When you're in a heavy industry, you're always in danger of being considered guilty for many things that are obviously part of a big societal problem relating to environment and how to take care of environment. No? So it's very important for us to show that commitment and to show with real actions that we are helping to make a difference, and that for sure we are having a net positive effect compared to the impact that we have. That's also very relevant, no? To show with examples, with the initiatives, and even quantitative figures and key performance indicators that we have a net positive impact.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Vicente. And it's so interesting that both you and Geraldine spoke about basically the drivers of engagement in biodiversity that Wildlife Habitat Council, WHC, over 30 years has seen our companies do, which is our C-Suite 16, which are the 16 common reasons, and how social license to operate tends to be the most common one that people engage with, but how increasingly consumers and stakeholders are that. So Jeff, I hope they answered your question. They certainly did for me. And you know, for Geraldine, I think, and CEMEX too, in a sense, but I'm going to pose this to Geraldine first. You know, GM has had this 10-year kind of experience, and you're now looking at your post-2020 strategic goals. And you've learned a lot and how to, you know, make integrated nature approaches like sustainable in the workplace. So, you know, what are the things that you look at when you're thinking about, you know, what does success look like when you're integrating nature into sustainable workplaces or in a sustainable way?
Success for us is to know, when we measure engagement in our workforce, that they feel that that they are contributing to something bigger. And sustainability is that something bigger, right? And especially with the new generations, we measure engagement frequently, and we want to see that people feel that the direction that the company is taking in the area of sustainability represents the values of our employees. So that is why we are really working towards aligning the business strategy with the sustainability strategy at large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the idea of engaging employees, we talk a lot about how most employees cannot touch many sustainability initiatives because they're either very technologically driven or driven from the top.
High.
Yes, but how nature-based biodiversity programs can be touched by everybody, anybody, like from the security guards to the CEO.
And even the community, right? So we have, you know, these small areas are not super large, but we have areas in 72 sites across the world where when we have our World Environmental Day, we bring communities, we use these areas for education purposes. So it's our handprint on the environment, right? How do we help kids or the families of our employees or our community to understand a little bit more about the nature and how that benefits all. So in addition to our employees is to bring our communities to do a little bit of STEM education. Our employees are passionate about that. So they feel that proud of you know, being able to share with others and be mentors for, especially for the kids, is so fun.
Yes, yes, and that integrated nature is just so great because you've got STEM, you've got employee engagement, you've got biodiversity uplift, so there's so many co-benefits to it. But Vicente, you can answer that question about how to integrate it in a sustainable way and what it means to the workplace and CEMEX. But I also have a question from Kellen in our participants. He said, how has CEMEX defined net zero in its 2050 carbon goal? And are nature-based solutions included in the strategy to get there? Now, he did not plant that question, I assure you. He came up with that all by himself because I know Kellen, he's working with the Suppliers Partnership for the Environment and advancing nature-based solutions. So, but he did, I think, tee you up with a good one there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will address first his question and then I can go back to the other topic. We're defining a 2050 target to have concrete, which is our end product, to be carbon neutral globally in all of our facilities worldwide. No? For us to be able to do that, there are many things that need to happen. Part of that, like 1/3 of the equation, it's already proven technology that we know how to do it. We are extending it in all of our facilities. By 2030, we are going to have a big jump on the reduction of CO2 thanks to all those proven technologies that we already know. But when we go beyond that, for us in our industry, for example, carbon capture and use is one big thing. One that is the one that is industrial is like 1/3 of the equation. But then we still don't get to carbon neutral. No, and we have other levers in the concrete operation with recycled concrete from demolitions and other things. So when we add all together, we are still missing a piece to go to carbon neutral. And we have a very specific piece on that, and we even have it on our website, that small gap that you are missing to get to carbon neutral is going to be achieved by doing reforestation of our quarries and to get natural carbon sinks. No? So one part of the equation to go to carbon neutral for sure is going to include natural carbon sinks. Is part of the equation, and actually we are even starting to do it beforehand. In some places in Europe, we are being able to reduce the footprint of our concrete all the way to about 70% less emissions than a traditional concrete. And the 30% gap of those emissions, we are now getting a carbon neutral certification coming from a reforestation program that completes the 30% that we cannot achieve with the existing technology. No? So we are doing it even in the short term. Now we are delivering net zero concrete to some important jobs in the UK and France, very soon in Germany, and we are going to extend that concrete product line to other places and other geographies. And it has a reforestation offset included as part of the program. and the customers know that for us to be able to deliver that product to them, it includes that part of reforestation, and it even has a certification, no, from a UK body to do that. No? So it's important, and it's part of the equation. No? And in practical terms, if you don't have natural carbon sinks, it's very hard to achieve carbon neutrality because the heavy industry footprint is so big that we cannot do it without it. No? And then on the second part is just to I think the part of the engagement, I think I will just want to illustrate it with one short example. When a plant director makes it their own to do a certification of their existing quarry in their operation or their ready-mix plant, that's where the big breakthrough happens. No? A person that is traditionally focused on operation, product, delivering products and all that, and gives part of his time to develop a biodiversity conservation strategy in its location to be certified, he takes ownership of that, he or she takes ownership of that, and that's when you make the big change. No? The mindset of operator all of a sudden become broader, and they start to consider this as part of doing business.
Yeah, I love that that concept of changing the mindsets and getting people to think about nature as not just something that they told us to do, but actually something that we really want to do. So thank you for that. And we just have another question, which I think is an interesting one, but I'm not sure. That Sabrina asked, you know, right, the two programs in Samex and General Motors, they have a longevity. So you guys may not have been around in the start, at the beginning, but can either of you speak to how the corporate leadership initially shifted to looking at biodiversity, nature-based strategies with sustainable business practices? She's just wondering what the motivations were originally. So either Geraldine or Vicente, if one of you want to go first.
Please,
Go, Vicente.
No.
Well, I think that it all starts as part of the strategy and looking at the areas of opportunity, right? And looking at what is material for your company. So in our case, we have like the three things that are material and that we're working towards to contribute towards climate neutrality. But that is sometimes look as doing less harm, right? So, okay, we're working on that, we're getting to carbon neutrality, we're consuming less water, but what is the handprint? So we have the footprint that we want to reduce or eliminate, but what is the handprint? And I feel that the handprint is our work on biodiversity, our work on STEM, our work on all these other areas, right, that go above and beyond just doing less harm.
Yeah, Geraldine, I love the concept of handprint. Is that beyond compliance? It's just that what are we doing to uplift rather than what are we doing to repair? And it's such a powerful concept when you frame it like that. So thank you for that. Vicente, what set CEMEX on this journey?
I would say that let's say 25 years ago or 20 years ago, the mindset was very simple. It was like, we have an environmental footprint, let's compensate for that. No? Mm-hmm. And that's why we create the El Carmen, for example. That's an initiative that came out of a goodwill initiative to try to compensate our big impact throughout the world. And it was 8 times bigger than all the area that we impact and all that. So that was the mindset back then, that compensate for the impact that you're having. But then we realized that in the day-to-day operation of a quarry, we can do a lot of things differently and also mitigate impact. And if you do also a good rehabilitation program after you extract all your minerals and all that, you can actually even enhance the biodiversity that was previously there when you started the impact. So the mindset changed to have a direct impact in the operation and how we can influence and how can we have a net positive impact also directly in the operation. No? So that's the shift, and that's how the approach evolved. No? Mm-hmm. And then I think the Wildlife Habitat Council took us one step further. Once we do that, how we engage the community to help us do it, and that they are aware of doing it, and how we can extend to communities the effort that we are doing. No? So I think those would be the three main phases that we went through, and that have taken us to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. So it's a really neat evolution in both organizations to just a beyond compliance model and a different way of looking at biodiversity, which is material to CEMEX, but not in essence material in that way to General Motors, but thinking about it in those ways. So I think that's an interesting contrast between industry sectors and why supply chain initiatives, like the Suppliers Partnership for the Environment, are important too, because a driver at one part of the supply chain might be different to a driver at the other. But if we can connect those through nature-based action, that would be really good. But I have to pivot a little bit to this pandemic. So do you feel that, and I really wanted actually to get through a session without talking about it, but do you feel that the pandemic has altered people's thoughts about nature, about, alters communities' thoughts, your employees' thoughts? Have you seen, heard, or do you consider the way in which we've had to change our working lives with respect to our places of work? And of course, you've all responded differently as companies. Some are essential services, some are not. But Geraldine, what do you think? And maybe just a bit of future casting. Do you feel that the pandemic has had an impact, is having an impact, and will have an impact in the future?
Well, our way of working has changed in the last few months. It is a fact. Many of us are working from home now. We're going to continue doing that. Our manufacturing sites are adjusting, just wanting to save on the air, on the side of safety, and make sure that people feel comfortable going to their workplace and feeling safe, right? So that has a big change, and it's undeniable that this year the focus has been on that. So we have so many initiatives, not only in sustainability, but in other areas. But with this crisis at hand, the focus this year has been on just, make sure that our people, the wellness of our people, and try to move forward with that. GM's commitments towards sustainability at large hasn't changed. We continue committed to invest $200 billion in our next generation of products, in our we stop everything but the plants where we are going to be building our batteries, where Factory Zero, where we are going to be building our next generation of EV vehicles. So that part hasn't changed, and we have our priorities set on a all-electric future.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, that your sustainability goals are still extant as we move through this global crisis, even though you shifted some of your manufacturing to essential items, but that your overall sustainability goal, because we are going to build forward, as Bill Cobb said. So thank you for that. Vicente, what about you? I mean, I know that within the quarries and cement that kept going during the initial shutdowns in some countries because they're considered essential services.
Yeah, our industry is the main supplier of construction, and the construction industry remained an essential industry almost everywhere. No? So we have actually a little bit of disruption, but we went active very soon. No? So from operation point of view, nothing really changed in our sector. It was only a very temporary effect of halting, and there are a lot of projects that need to be finished, so we are quite active. No? In all places, 100% of our activities are up and running. No? So from that perspective, that was not a big change. But I want to do a reflection on how people's mindset have gone through the pandemic in relation to nature. No? And you have seen the anecdotal evidence of less mobility and animals appearing in cities and in towns that they have never seen them before. Air pollution in cities has come down and has made people aware of how less mobility can impact positively the health impact that pollution has on them. So I think the pandemic has actually reinforced the mindset of people of how relevant nature is. It has got us also closer to nature. Instead of going to a shopping mall that is closed, you go to do a hiking. I have seen people completely change their lifestyle with this pandemic, and it's all nature-oriented, at least in places where you can go and you have access to mountains and all that. I have seen people that never in their life have gone to a mountain here in Monterrey, where our headquarters is. We have beautiful mountains, but people don't used to go there. Now they are going. Now the bears are coming down. Now it's a problem and it's a challenge, because you have to find a way how to live together with animals that were not coming down from their place. And so it has actually reinforced the importance of caring for nature. And from that point of view, I think this will not fade away. This will stay in the mindset, and we have to find ways on how to continue and retake where we left before COVID. But let's do the correct things that we learn with less mobility and all that, and let's try to improve environment in the short term. Let's the improvement environment, let's keep it, no? And it has happened the same in climate change, which is a bigger thing, and it's the general concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere has redoubled the interest from authorities, from stakeholders, to go deeper into your commitments to go for climate change actions and all that, no? So I think it has re-enhanced all things related to environment, and this has an impact in our operations, and we have to go deeper and faster in the initiatives that we had before the pandemic.
That's absolutely correct, and we're hearing more and more that, you know, we know the timeline for climate change, but we're hearing more and more that our timeline for biodiversity is getting shorter and shorter, and we have a decade for action. And, you know, we're moving into the super year for nature was supposed to establish a post-2020 agenda. Having failed to meet most of the global goals for nature in the Convention on Biological Diversity, we need aggressive goals going forward. So I'm going to just ask you both a closing statement as before we move into our award. And I think, you know, my question to you is, going into or continuing with the super year for nature, moving into a post-2020 agenda for nature, what do you need to help you meet your nature-based goals in the future? Is it support from the business community, the investor community, the conservation community? What is that? And how can we help General Motors and CEMEX meet their goals moving into a post-2020 agenda world? Geraldine, have you thoughts?
Yes, you know, in our case, we are ready and willing to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles. We know that that's kind of where we need to go to make a significant impact in our industry. And we are dependent somehow on infrastructure, right? With the government, on the infrastructure available, so people feel confident that they will be able to charge their automobiles. We need to go with government, and we're working with them to rethink the whole strategy around transportation and mobility, and get support towards this transition. So that is one piece, and the other piece that we're working very closely this year is our suppliers. There is no one industry that can move the needle in a significant way by itself. It is, you know, up to coalitions, groups. That is, you know, why we're all here, right? Because we want to understand how can we help each other, learn from each other. So one of our big efforts for our Beyond 2020 goals is to reach out to our stakeholders to work together on problems and projects and initiatives that benefits all of us and that help us to move the needle in areas as climate change, as value nature, and in many other areas, including materials.
Great. Well, thank you and good luck. There's a lot we need to do. Vicente. Yeah. So, Vicente, post-2020 agenda for nature. What help do you need? What would make your life a lot easier?
I will maybe a little bit overlap with what Geraldine said, but I think it's very relevant to reinforce the message. I think we have to be more collaborative. We have to do collaborative efforts, to add the efforts of many so that the focus effect of those concentrated efforts have a bigger impact. So collaboration, I think, is the name of the game. Across industries, across NGOs, across technical experts. Some of the technology that we need to develop will not happen by one company by itself developing. So even in the industries have to come up together, have to work closer together, but also across industry. You know? In the Global Cement and Concrete Association, we created an Innovandi, a center for research and development, and we're going to work together as an industry to develop the new technologies that we need to go for that challenge of carbon neutrality. And we are working with other industries and as well. And I think in all the efforts that are related to nature, you have to work with the experts, no? And to develop partnerships with the people who know how to do it. No? If we want to do a mangrove restoration program in Costa Rica, we don't know how to do that. We are cement and concrete manufacturers. No? So we need someone to help us. No? And we engage with someone locally, someone globally. We can turn that project into generating carbon offsets that will be a good supply to our commercial efforts for our products that we want them to be carbon neutral. So you start to get all types of synergies from these different initiatives, but I think then the name of the game is going to have collaboration, no, and to set ambitious goals, no, and to be very clear on what we want to achieve, no. I just want to just one very small anecdote of, and I think relevant to Geraldine, on how impact you can have with if you state your goals clearly. I have an 18-year-old son, just started college finance major. So I gave him a little money to start investing in companies. And one of the companies he chose, to my surprise, was General Motors because of their electric vehicle targets, you know? And so, I mean, and I didn't even know how he got that information and how he analyzed, and I was quite surprised. And through him, I learned of the big effort that General Motors is going to put together for achieving that. No? So I just wanted to share that as what's happening, no? And how things can change if you set those ambitions and then you collaborate to get everybody in line to achieving those. No?
Yeah, that's great.
You made my days, Vicente.
Yes, so youth-led activist investment might save us all. But Geraldine and Vicente, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, your companies are in different industry sectors. You take different approaches, but I think what unites you is the thoughtful approaches that you take to biodiversity and engagement with the natural world. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate hearing from you both today. And I now have the pleasure of presenting our WHC Corporate Leadership Award. It's the award that we affectionately call one of our big awards. It's our Corporate Conservation Award, and it's our top award. It honors one company's overall achievement in conservation efforts and signifies an exemplary level of corporate commitment to biodiversity and conservation education and meaningful alignments with global conservation goals. So it's my pleasure to present the 2020 WHC Corporate Conservation Leadership Award to CEMEX. So congratulations, all the CEMEX team and Vicente. So I'm just going to say why this award happened. So within the past certification cycle, CEMEX received conservation certification status for 12 programs with a combined total of 15 qualifying projects. Projects within these programs are aligned with CEMEX's corporate commitment to conservation, and they're across themes such as awareness and engagement, formal learning, landscaping and wetlands, as well as large scale, and they're aligned with large scale initiatives like the California State Wildlife Action Plan, the Friends of Verde River Cooperative Invasive Species Management Plan, BirdLife International, and a multi-agency research initiative for the Georgia black bear population, the strategy for the conservation of Chihuahuan desert grasslands, Mexico's program for action for the conservation of pronghorn, the annual plan of the National Ramsar Committee for the Dominican Republic, and Panama's Alliance for 1 Million Hectares. So contributing to all of those conservation, national and international conservation efforts. These 30 programs are located in 8 US states, as well as Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Panama, Poland, Latvia, Costa Rica, and Colombia. So truly global effort. And yesterday they won 3 project awards. So CEMEX is a very happy company today. But I'm just now going to pass over. I'm going to say congratulations to Vicente, and you can accept the award on behalf of the company. Vicente.
Well, thank you very much. We are extremely happy, extremely honored to receive this award. I think I would say that it's the result of many years of efforts and many years of commitment to biodiversity. I think this is a very nice way on achieving everything that you did for several years, and I think it's finally coming to this moment. The Wildlife Habitat Council has, as I explained in the first part of my participation, complemented our biodiversity strategy, and I think receiving this type of recognition is very relevant for all of our employees, also for our top management, and for sure sends a very strong message to all of our stakeholders, that we are very serious about it, and that we are on the right track, and that we were not wrong when we decided to invest in biodiversity conservation many years ago, with the vision that this was going to be a very relevant topic, and that it was our responsibility as a global company that has an impact on the environment to do all the actions to mitigate that impact, and to go beyond what we are requested by regulations and authorities. Is go beyond do the extra mile. Our team in the US set the example for us, and then we took this wildlife habitat certification, turned it into a global initiative, and let's say the ownership level of our operators worldwide, we are very happy on how this has worked, because they have made it their own. A good example is that 7 countries are participating in this certification that we have received, and we're going for more. Actually, we have targets to include more countries as we move along. So we are extremely happy, extremely satisfied with all the teams that work very hard at CEMEX to receive this. We are going to make sure that we are going to communicate back in our company what the recognition that we are receiving today, and I'm sure that is going to have a big motivation effect on all of our company. Our top management is also quite aware of us getting this recognition, and we appreciate on behalf of CEMEX. We thank you very much. But we especially thank you for the programs that you have in place that allows us to work harder at this, and for us to know that we are on the right direction. So thank you very much, and we appreciate very much the honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicente, and to Alejandro, to Matt, to Jenna, to Jure, to Chase, all of the people from the CEMEX family who engage with us every year. Congratulations, and well deserved. So we're running 5 minutes late. Again, I'm going to have to pay a fine to our organizing committee, but join us for our next session. It's at 1:15. And we're going to have panelists from DTE Energy, Covia, Bear, talk about nature-based strategies for employee engagement. And this session is sponsored by Ernst Conservation Seeds. So in the same way, connect to the session through our event platform. Vicente, Geraldine, thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you so much. And we'll see you this afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.